Oh, do you want to, how are we going to control the feedback from her on my phone? Oh, are we live? Okay, everyone, we are now live. So Mayor Dwight Burley, I will pass it over to you.
Thanks, Brittany. Welcome, everybody. I would like to call this meeting to order. I need someone to approve the agenda, please.
Paul will.
Moved by Councillor Sutherland, second by Councillor Pringle.
I'll second.
Would you take the vote, please?
Yes. Sorry, just getting myself organized here. So for the record, that was Councillor Sutherland and Councillor Pringle, right?
That's correct.
Thank you. Okay. So when I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against approval of the adoption of the agenda as presented. Councillor Carol Barfoot.
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland.
For.
Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn.
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson.
For.
Councillor Grant Pringle.
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton.
For.
And Mayor Dwight Burley.
For.
Thank you, and that will also serve for purposes of roll call.
Thanks, Brittany. Moving on to the agenda, is there any declaration of pecuniary interest?
Councillor Sutherland, I have one on item 15.1.1.
Thanks, Paul. So noted. Is there any other disclosure of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Minutes of the meeting of April 8th. That the minutes of the special electronic council meeting held on April 8th, 2020 be adopted. There's someone to move the motion, please.
Also move.
Moved by Councillor Thompson, second by?
Carol Barfoot.
Second by Councillor Barfoot. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion? Brittany, I'll let you take the vote.
Thank you. When I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against the motion as presented. Councillor Carol Barfoot.
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland.
For.
Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn.
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson.
For.
Councillor Grant Pringle.
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton.
For.
And Mayor Dwight Burley.
For.
Thank you, and that carries.
Moving on to our agenda. Announcements. Excuse me. With great pleasure, I would like to announce that we've hired a new administrative assistant, Krista Freon, who will be starting with the Township April 21st. Brittany, would you introduce Krista, please?
Absolutely. So it is my pleasure to welcome Krista Fearon to Team Bluffs in our new administrative assistant role. Krista will be assisting myself in the clerk's department, as well as offering general support, hopefully throughout the office. We will be getting her trained and set up virtually, so Teams will be our new best friend. I will say that Krista is having slight difficulties with her audio today, so although she is on Teams with us, I have patched her in on my cell phone. So Krista, if you'd just like to say hello, council can hear you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yep, for sure.
Okay, good.
You're good to go.
All right.
So Krista comes to us from Brantford, correct, Crystal? Brantford? Krista?
That's where I worked, yes, but most recently I moved from Dundas, which is a suburb of Burlington. area. And I've worked primarily at universities, mostly at Wilfrid Laurier University, and I'm new to the area and happy to be here.
We are happy to have you, and we will get her all set up so you can see her video as well on May 6th. So thank you, Krista.
Thank you.
Welcome, Krista. So moving on to our agenda. We have no presentations, no delegations. We're down to the consent agenda. Is there any item that council would like to pull from the agenda for further discussion? Seeing none? So I'll read the motion that the Council of Township of Georgian Bluffs adopt the consent agenda as circulated and that staff be directed to proceed with all necessary administrative actions. Could somebody move the motion, please?
Also move.
Moved by Councillor Thompson, second by
I will second that.
Oh,
Deputy Mayor Carlton. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Brittany, will you take the vote, please?
When I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against the motion as presented. Councillor Carol Barfoot.
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland.
4.
Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn.
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson.
4.
Councillor Grant Pringle.
4.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton.
For.
And Mayor Dwight Burley.
4.
Thank you, and that carries.
Thank you. We're down to correspondence. The first item of correspondence is Fred Mandino's Finland Street issues. Tyler, would you like to speak to this?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Burley. It's a well-written letter. I've been able to go back through our records and find out that, yes, we did end up putting down a tar and chip on this particular road. We had a public meeting back in August 2010 that confirmed we're going to keep our eyes on the condition of this road. It is untypical construction. What we're asking at this time, if council decides to ask staff to prepare a report for a road condition assessment, or even to go so far as a cost estimate for repair. As for at this time, we have no schedule maintenance or repair options for this road at this time.
Thanks, Tyler. Does any comments from council?
I'd like to speak.
Sorry, Carol, go ahead.
Yes, I've been over that road a couple times since I received the letter. It would be interesting to hear Tyler's assessment of it and sort of a cost estimate. There is a couple areas in there that's a little iffy. However, I didn't think it was that awful bad.
Thanks, Carol. What I would like to recommend before I go to, I believe it was Kathy, that we'd ask Tyler to bring back a report to council on this particular section of road. So,
Mayor Burley, it was Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton that wanted to speak, I believe.
oh, sorry, Deputy Mayor Carlton, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I agree with what Councillor Barfoot said. I don't think the road is in terrible shape, but it would be nice to see a report coming back on that, because maybe this is an easy time to fix it and get it back to a standard. So I would look forward to that report as well. Thank you.
Is there any other comments on this particular correspondence? Seeing none, so Tyler, staff will bring back a report on this road for future meeting.
Yes, sir, I will.
Thanks, Tyler. So moving on, we're down to Canadian Radio, Television, and Telecommunication Commission. 2 sets of correspondence on that, bill application and letter of support. Brittany, you want to speak to this?
I can, Brittany, if you prefer.
Okay, and Marie, you go.
Okay, so basically there has been money that has been provided to the CTRC called the Broadband Fund. The fund is $750 million over the next 5 years. It looks like Bell Canada is putting in a proposal for some of these funds to be used for improved access, so fixed broadband internet, access network infrastructure to communities, and we have been identified as one of those communities, so they're looking for a letter for support.
Okay. Comments from council? Seeing none, Amory, would you prepare that letter?
You bet.
And bring it back to another meeting, or?
The letter for support is actually next on the agenda. There is a template there just stating that we would be in support of it, and there is no financial contribution needed at this time. I'd be happy to forward that on behalf of council.
Okay.
If we need a motion on that, I would so move that.
I don't know if a motion is required, but it's just direction to staff to prepare and send the letter out as, which is already in our agenda. If everyone would agree to that, that would be the direction to staff. Brittany, do you need to take a vote on that?
I would say just for clarity's sake, given that we're all participating electronically, I think we should handle it as a motion in support of forwarding the template, just so we can ensure everyone is in favor of that. So
Okay.
we have a mover that has presented the motion of support. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Thank you. So when I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against circulating the letter of support to Bell. Councillor Carol Barfoot.
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland.
For.
Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn.
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson.
For.
Councillor Grant Pringle.
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton.
Or.
And Mayor Dwight Burley.
Or?
Thank you, and that carries.
We have no committee reports, so we're down to staff reports.
Sorry, Mayor Burley, we missed one piece of correspondence, being the Grey Bruce Public Health physical distancing for anglers.
I apologize for that. That was mainly for information, I believe, Council?
Yes, it was. Yes, I can speak to it. It was for information, just with our upcoming fishing season starting for our lakes and rivers on April 25th. The Public Health for Grey Bruce has put out a maintaining your physical distancing while fishing, keeping 3 salmon lengths apart from each other, and just had some overall information about that. And just, I guess, wanting to put it out there that they're still encouraging people to fish, but to make sure that you basically are still adhering to the physical distancing.
I can appreciate their wisdom of trying to have 3 salmon spaces apart. Some of the salmons are fairly small, so it may be fairly tight. But anyway, it's just a comical thing. It's just for information. The council have any comments on the letter?
No.
Seeing none, so we'll move on.
Mayor Burley.
Go ahead
Carol
with that.
Barfoot.
Go ahead, Carol.
Did we jump over accounts?
That was part of that. You mean, are you referring to the consent agenda, Carol?
Yeah. Sorry, I should have had one pulled then.
Could we bring that up under other business, Brittany, or do you want to do it now?
We can entertain questions now if you'd like.
Okay, Carol, go ahead with your question on which part.
Well, I just had a problem with legal fees. A lot of them were to do with planning and administration and planning. Are our bylaws, do they need a real close look at them? that we have to get so often resort to lawyers? Will our bylaws not stand up in court?
Can I speak to that before Jen does? Is Jen here? Anyway, can I speak to it first, please, Mayor Burley?
Go ahead, Cassandra.
So Carol, Councillor Barfoot, part of the problem with those legal fees is it looks like we're getting a lot at once. But that particular lawyer is very slow on invoicing. So at this time of year, we get a ton of invoices for bylaws and work that's been done throughout 2019. So I do realize that it does look like a lot, but some of those relate to things that occurred months ago. Just to clarify that, and then as for your question about bylaws requiring legal fees, I can leave that to the planning department.
Jen, do you want to make any comments?
I haven't had an opportunity to look at the charges on there. A lot of times we receive an invoice that that Cassie can correct me if I'm wrong. We pay out, and then we have the applicant, like for a site plan agreement, they reimburse the township for that fee. So I would have to go back. Generally, these are with that law firm. Those are for registration of documents.
Jen is 100% correct. Sorry, those are ones that we do invoice back out as well. Those are the ones I emailed you about a couple weeks ago, Jen.
Okay, thanks for that. Carol, does that answer your concerns?
Yeah, it's just that when you see 9,972, you wonder, is there something we should be doing? I know we increased our legal fees in the budget, so I was just curious about that. Thank you very much, Cassie and Jen.
Thanks, Carol. Okay, I don't think I've missed anything yet. The committee reports. We're down to staff reports now. I have a recommendation here that the report from Cassandra Rocca, Director of Finance, regarding requests for reduced water rates be received for information. Could I have somebody to put it on the floor, please?
I will move that.
I think it was Councillor Barfoot that moved it, and it was Councillor Colburn seconded it.
I can second it.
Brittany, have you heard who seconded the motion?
So originally I had Carol and Kathy. I can change that to Carol and Sue.
Okay. Cassandra, would you like to speak to this?
Sure, thank you. This report came about, someone's echoing, it's driving me, okay, sorry. This report came about because a question from the ratepayer came in wondering if we'd looked at reducing water rates. I think the report outlines it really well, but at this time, I'm not proposing that we reduce these rates. Our cost to produce water has not gone down. And at this time, we do not have any evidence to support that usage has gone up. Each household is allocated 0.5 cubic meters per day in their base rate fee, except for Oxiden, which is 100% usage. So once we do the meter reads at the end of April, and once we see what kind of direction we get from the province after May 12th, we can look at this issue again. But at this time, a reduce in water rates is not warranted.
Dwight, you have yourself muted.
Oh, comments from council.
Carol Barfoot.
Go ahead, Carol.
I agree with Cassie.
Okay. Brittany, would you take the vote, please?
Absolutely. Just clarifying that there's no other comments on this motion. Okay, when I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against the motion as presented. Councillor Carol Barfoot. Councillor Carol Barfoot.
Sorry, I keep forgetting to hit this mute button. Okay, we're in favor of Cassie's recommendation.
Correct, yes. So you are accepting her report for information.
Yes, 4.
Thank you. Councillor Paul Sutherland.
4.
Councillor Kathy Moore Coburn.
4.
Councillor Ryan Thompson.
4.
Councillor Grant Pringle.
4.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton.
4.
Mayor Dwight Burley.
4.
Thank you, and that carries.
Thank you. Moving right along, rent deferral request at the Wharton Airport. I have a recommendation. Whereas an emergency was declared in the Township of Georgian Bluffs on March 27th, 2020 in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, and whereas Council of the Township of Georgian Bluffs recognizes the financial impact of the ongoing pandemic on local businesses. Now, therefore, Council of the Township of Georgian Bluffs hereby approves a rent deferral option for tenants at the Wharton Capital International Airport for up to 4 months or the duration of the emergency period, whichever is greater, and further that Council authorize the Director of Operations to grant a rent deferral on a case-by-case basis. Do I have somebody to move the motion, please?
I will move the motion.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlson, second by
I can second it.
Councilor Pringle. Tyler, do you want to speak to this?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Burley. This is more of a federal issue is what we're getting ourselves into, and we're in a unique situation as we are the owners and operators of the Wharton Airport. So we have tenants. We are considered to be we are the landlords. So what we're doing is the letter from Wanda Kerr reaching out and asking for a deferral or rent reduction. The province has outlined somewhat of guidelines for all of commercial renters and their landlords, hoping to work together with these options. So at this time, our staff is recommending that we move forward with a deferral at this time, and in honest hopes that the federal and the provincial government will come around to subsidies to start to help out these small businesses.
Thanks, Tyler. Comments from council?
One question, Kathy Coburn.
Go ahead, Kathy.
So the motion is actually asking us to approve 2 different things, and the one I have a question about is the comment in there that directs Tyler to look at these requests on a case-by-case basis. I'm just wondering, I just want to make sure the process is equitable and fair. And so to me, if we're offering something for one, we would make it available for all. So I'm just wondering what the intent of that particular statement is.
Thank you, Councillor Coburn. That's an excellent question. And it was we didn't come to this option very lightly. Obviously, we have a bunch of different tenants, and some of them actually don't utilize the area for their customers to come in. Some of it is actually just office space. So it's a unique environment we're in, and and obviously the case by case coming forward. I was just contacted by another tenant today via email. So again, that's the intent of this, is just not to approve this one letter at this time, but to allow for others to come forward. But to do a blanket across the entire terminal building or the renters, I'm not sure if that's the best option at this time, considering the different tenants. Hopefully I answered that question. Again, I'm open to options as well.
Yeah,
So
thanks, Tyler. I appreciate that. I guess my point, though, is that we don't want to be seen as offering preferential treatment of anyone, so that I would hope that we would treat all of our tenants in an equitable way. But I think that's what you're saying.
That is definitely the true intent here. And again, it's if they're all the same type of tenants or the same, even gene, if you will, of influx of customers, we'd be able to. But I feel like we're going to have to do this more on a case by case basis, and it's hopefully they'll see this report and come forward, and we'll get them all taken care of during this difficult time.
Okay, thank you, Tyler. Go ahead, Councillor Thompson. Go ahead.
Thank you. So I just wanted to make sure, we're talking about a deferral. So I think what we're talking about is a deferral. So we would be allowing them to postpone payment of the rent, not a forgiveness. Is that correct?
Yes, 100%. So the letter that has spawned this report is asking for either rent deferral or rent reduction. It seems to be, again, it's all over the news. I think it was something like 700,000 small businesses, or businesses rather, in Canada that are all affected by this similar issue. So it didn't seem relative after staff discussions to try and take on this as a municipal issue. So again, it's our earnest hopes that the federal and the provincial government starts to back these small businesses. But at this time, it's staff feels that the deferral is going to be enough to allow that to happen.
So, Mr. Mayor, if you'll tolerate my second point. So that I'm wondering, I agree with Councillor Coburn about the risk of treating people differently. I wonder, do we consider just saying to all of our lessees, I don't know if that's the right word, but to say, similar to what some other banking institutions and others are doing, and saying, we would offer to all of you a 4-month rent deferral if you're interested. The deferral being that, they would still pay. We would just be deferring the expectation till the pandemic was over.
Mr. Mayor, can I jump in here? It's Anne-Marie.
Go ahead, Anne-Marie.
So I think what we were trying to say is that we would definitely offer a deferral for whoever came forward. We just didn't want to have to come back to council to have everyone approved. But it was across the board, yes, you will have a deferral if you wish to have one. Some people may not wish to have that deferral because they may not want to have a very large bill at the end of 4 months. So we were just going to say that if they do come forward and want one, you can have one. But we wanted to not have to come back with that with each individual case.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. Councillor Thompson, does that answer your comments?
No, I understood it. I guess what I was trying to say was, do we just hope that people will come forward, or that they'll hear from the others, or do we extend the offer? That was my only thought, was consideration of the offer. As it comes to executing them, I don't know that. I don't wonder if there's a manner that says we could provide direction to send the letter and execute the agreement with those that come forward. I can appreciate that we don't want to come back and forth with all the individuals.
Right.
Good
and we can certainly reach out.
I think staff have got the general intent of the motion and so on. If there's no other comments on the recommendation, Brittany, would you take the vote, please?
Yes, I can do that. Carol, I saw your name bolded a couple of times. Did you want to make a comment?
No.
Okay, just double checking. Okay, so when I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against the motion as presented. Councillor Carol Barfoot.
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland.
For.
Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn.
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson.
For.
Councillor Grant Pringle.
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton.
For.
And Mayor Dwight Burley.
4.
Thank you, and that carries 7-0. And the minutes will reflect that staff will communicate the deferral option to the airport tenants.
Thanks, Brittany. Moving on, the next is our emergency control group update. The report CAO 2020-04 regarding an update from the emergency control group be received for information. Would I have somebody to move the motion to put it on the floor, please?
Carol
I will
Barfoot.
move the motion.
Moved by Councillor Barfoot, second by Deputy Mayor Carlton.
Correct.
Anne Marie, would you like to speak to this?
Certainly. So as council is well aware, Georgian Bluffs declared an emergency on March 27th, 2020, and that initiates our emergency control group. The group does meet every week, and I have committed to providing council an update of the meetings so that council is aware of what has happened at the meetings. The last meeting, we did talk about the fire ban that was initiated from the province, and that remains in effect. And at this time, our fire chief just still does not recommend that it become a township-wide fire ban enforcement. We are receiving calls from residents as to possible non-essential and essential businesses. The businesses that we have looked into at the staff level, none of them were violating the provincial order. We've had a number of calls about construction. We've also had some concerns around the cemetery. We did that there were gatherings of more than 10 people. We have been in contact with cemetery staff, and we are continuing to monitor this and have chosen to keep the cemetery open at this time. And there is a report about the airport coming later on, but certainly looking at any issues or incidences that the that the orders from the province may have or any influence on the airport. And I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Anne Marie. Council, have any questions?
I do, Mr. Mayor. Sorry.
So is that Kathy?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Just regarding the airport, it says passengers are not using the airport. I know we get a report on the airport a little further down on the agenda, but unless I'm reading it incorrectly, can you just explain that one to me, Anne Marie? Passengers are not using the airport?
So passengers are not typically coming into the building. They are landing and going out. So yes, not necessarily coming.
The terminal. Gotcha.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
Okay. If there's no other discussion on the motion, Brittany, will you take the vote, please?
Absolutely. When I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against the motion as presented. Councillor Carol Barfoot.
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland.
For.
Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn.
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson.
For.
Councillor Grant Pringle.
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton.
For.
And Mayor Dwight Burley.
4.
Thank you, and that carries.
Okay, moving off our agenda, a site plan agreement for Peter Gardner. The motion will be that application SP 1419 for Peter Gardner be approved and that bylaw 2020-37 be passed to authorize a site plan agreement for lands described as part lots 6 and 7, Georgian Range, parts 1 and 2, RFP 16R 9176, SEPT1 16R 16285. Do you have something to move the motion, please?
I'll move it.
Moved by Councillor Sullivan, second by?
I'll second.
Councillor Thompson. Jen, do you want to speak to this?
Yep. So this is a fairly straightforward agreement. It was required as a condition of consent. Peter Gardner applied for a severance last year, and one of the conditions of consent was that he enter into an agreement with the township to protect some of the environmental features on the property. So specific to this agreement in section 1E, if Mr. Gardner or whoever owns the property wants to develop outside of the approved area, then that individual will need to come back with an environmental impact study. Otherwise, there are 3 provisions there to give guidance on the development for both properties. This agreement will be registered on title to both of the properties, and once it's registered, then Mr. Gardner will be able to complete his severance application and will be able to stamp his deed.
Thanks, Jen. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? Seeing none, Brittany, would you take the vote, please?
When I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against the motion as presented. Councillor Carol Barfoot?
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland?
For.
Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn?
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson?
For.
Councillor Grant Pringle?
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton?
For.
And Mayor Dwight Burley?
For.
Thank you, and that carries.
Cool. Moving right along, Wharton Keppel International Airport. I have a motion here that the council accept report OPS 2020-21, Wharton Keppel International Airport update for information. Do I have somebody to move the motion, put it on the floor, please?
I will move the motion.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlton, second by?
Carol Barfoot.
Second by Councillor Barfoot. Is Zach Premate here?
I'm on the line, Dwight.
Do you want to comment on it?
Just general updates of what's going on at the airport. We're just doing housekeeping, summer prep. As we all know, the COVID crisis is affecting the airport. We have seen movement numbers drop and also fuel sales drop during this time. Looking at 2020, we were actually up with fuel sales at this time. Same with aircraft movements. Other than that, we're getting staff back up to 70 hours, and line painting is possibly taking place this week. Work on the AOM has been submitted to Transport Canada, just waiting on approval, and the emergency response plan is currently being worked on as we speak.
Thanks, Zach. Any discussion on the motion?
Kathy Coburn.
Go ahead, Kathy.
Yeah, so I was just, curious to note that while I think we can look at the past month of March compared to March 2019, there is a slight decrease in airport usage, but compared to the previous month in 2020, there's 3 times more traffic. I would have thought that would have been less given the Ontario recommendation to curtail any unnecessary or non-essential travel. So I'm just wondering if Zach or Anne Marie might be able to make a comment about that.
Go ahead, Zach.
Well, are we sorry, Councillor Coburn? Are we talking about January per se or February?
I'm talking about March, Zach.
Okay, so March, we did see an movement drop for the month of March compared to the previous year. I did see at the start of the month, obviously, we did see an increase of traffic for the month of March. The issue was mid-March is when the COVID crisis really started to take a toll. And with everything that's going on, Transport Canada regulations on the usage of the airport, we're seeing that Transport Canada is treating it almost like as a public road. You're able to access the facility. We've shut down the terminal to the general public, but the access to the runway, the fuel system, and taxiways, they're all able to be accessed by pilots that are just flying in and out. Does that answer your question?
Thanks. Yeah, but I understand that's helpful. I guess my concern is, are these locals that are flying in? Are these people from out of the area? Again, going back to my comment about curtailing non-essential travel, we don't want to be facilitating an increased risk for our locals. I assume we've had some messaging out there to, as has the Bruce Peninsula, to discourage visitors coming into our area at this time until we get the all clear in terms of opening it up to travel.
So to speak on that, emails have been sent out to the general public about the access to the terminal. Access to the airport in general, though, we have sent out emails towards our tenants, informing them about social distancing. Also, on effective April 20th, all the general public for just general aviation, if you're planning on flying, there's a requirement to have a face mask available when you're transiting or using the airport. So there's a reduced, and I also have seen too, Councillor Coburn, I've also seen a reduced traffic for the past couple weeks in regards to just people coming in and out of the airport. I'm not seeing the airport being used at the rate as I was seeing in previous years with movement numbers.
Thanks, Zach. Does that answer your question?
Mr. Mayor, well, sure. Yes, it does. And I appreciate that information. So I suppose we will possibly see reduced numbers for April, given the timing of when the emergency was declared in March. I'm hoping that's the case. Again, just to reiterate the importance of people staying put, that's the whole notion of sheltering at home. And of course, you can't close down transportation for folks, but we can make a statement about people not coming into our area to vacation until we've seen more of a drop in rates of COVID-19.
Thanks, Councillor Coburn. Good points. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, Brittany, would you take a vote, please?
Oh, back up, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, okay, Councillor Barfoot, go ahead.
I was just wondering if you want to share some good news with us. I noticed at the bottom of Zach's report, Grey County is the first there, and then Georgian Bluffs. So is Grey County, because I noticed that the airport manager is going to be working with Grey County and Georgian Bluffs to promote the airport. So is there good news coming from Grey County as to any support, financial support for that?
I really can't answer that question right now, Councillor Barfoot. Before the pandemic took place, there was a lot of amazing things going on. A lot of it has been sort of put on hold until we see where things are going. Does Grey County support the airport? Yes, they do. There had been conversations about having financial support. Yes, they've committed to that. But it's just sort of everything's been put on hold until after we get out of this pandemic. I'm not trying to avoid your question. I'm just telling you the way it is. It's just basically on hold. Did I answer your question, Carol? Anne-Marie?
I can certainly talk to the marketing and promotion part of it. So Grey County, through economic development, has been working with Georgian Bluffs and the Lumex Group for getting out information about the airport. Before, it was working with the Fly GTA and working on information about that, but obviously that has been postponed for this season. But they are part of the economic development and promotion of the airport at this point.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. Is there any other discussion on this motion before us? Seeing none, Brittany, would you take the vote, please?
Okay, when I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against the motion as presented. Councillor Carol Barfoot.
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland.
For.
Councillor Kathy Moore Coburn.
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson.
For.
Councillor Graham Pringle.
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton.
For.
And Mayor Dwight Burley.
For.
Thank you, and that carries.
Thanks, Brittany. Next on our agenda is public question period, and I understand there was no questions that had come through from the public. Is that correct, Brittany?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that is correct.
Okay, so we'll move on to our agenda. We're down to bylaws. Whereas council has given consideration to the written comments submitted by the agencies in the decision on proposed zoning bylaw amendment application Z 3019 for Paul and Leon Sutherland for the lands described as Keppel Concession 19, Part Lot 40, RP 16R 6460, PT Part 1, and whereas council has considered oral submissions made at the public meeting, therefore be resolved the council Township of Georgian Bluffs is satisfied that the proposed amendment is consistent with the provincial policy statement 2014 and other governing regulations, and that resolution number RES 202085 is hereby rescinded, and that bylaw 2020-38 be read a first, second, third time, finally passed, signed with the mayor and clerk, sealed the corporation, and endorsed in the bylaw book. I'll point out that Councillor Sutherland has declared a conflict on this motion. And Brittany, do you care to comment?
Yes, I can comment. I would just ask that there be a mover and a seconder to place it on the floor, please.
Carol Barfoot.
Moved by Councillor Barfoot.
I'll second.
Second by Councillor Thompson. It's nice to see you on the call, Brittany.
Thank you. So I just wanted to briefly comment on this. I know that this application was brought forward to council, I believe, on March 4th. This is strictly my error, so I am just correcting my bylaw numbering error. I duplicated 2020-29, so all I'm doing is repealing the original bylaw and replacing it so it has its own number. I have communicated with Councillor Paul Sutherland and his family that this does not affect their zoning amendment application at all. Jen has also noted that due to the restrictions regarding appeal periods and the absence of the LPAT right now, the appeal period for this application will occur following the cessation of the emergency period. And Jen, if you have anything you'd like to add to that, please go ahead.
Jen?
I don't have anything to add.
Okay, thank you. Does council have any comment? Seeing none, Brittany, will you take the vote, please?
Absolutely. Sorry, guys, I know that was a very confusing way of saying I made an error and duplicated the bylaw. So when I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against the motion as presented. Councillor Kathy Moore Coburn.
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland has declared an interest and therefore will abstain from voting. Councillor Carol Barfoot.
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson.
For.
Councillor Grant Pringle.
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton.
For.
And Mayor Dwight Burley.
For.
Thank you, and that carries.
Thank you. Councillor Sutherland will rejoin the meeting. We're moving down to bylaw 2020-37. The bylaw 2020-37 being a bylaw to authorize a site plan agreement with Peter Gardner be read a first, second, third time, finally passed and signed by the mayor, clerk, sealed the corporation, and endorsed in the bylaw book. Do we have somebody to move the motion and put it on the floor, please?
I'll move it.
Moved by Councillor Thompson, second by second by
Grant.
Aye.
So just let the record reflect that Councillor Paul Sutherland moved that motion, and it was seconded by Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn.
Sorry, Paul, for the auto. Okay, is there any discussion on the motion before us? Jen, do you have any comments on?
I do not believe the planner has any comments to add, no.
No,
Okay.
sorry, I don't have any comments.
Thanks, Jen. Okay, my sound keeps cutting in and out, but I don't think I heard any more discussion on the motion. So Brittany, would you take the vote, please?
Absolutely. So when I call your name, please indicate whether you're for or against the motion as presented. Councillor Carol Barfoot.
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland.
For.
Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn.
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson.
For.
Councillor Graham Pringle.
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton.
For.
And Mayor Dwight Burley.
For.
Thank you, and that carries.
Thank you. Moving on with bylaw 2020-39. The bylaw 2020-39 being a bylaw to amend the legal description in bylaw 2019-100, which authorized the site plan agreement with Reed Heritage Homes Limited be read a first, second, third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, and sealed with the seal of the corporation and endorsed in the bylaw book. Do I have someone to move the motion, please?
Carol Barfoot.
Moved by Councillor Barfoot.
I will second.
Second by Deputy Mayor Carlton. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? Jen, do you want to make any comments?
This is just a fairly straightforward bylaw. What happened was when the township's lawyer went to register the agreement, they realized that the legal description that we have on file in the township office was different than what is actually registered in the registry office. So this bylaw just amends that legal description so that none of the agreement has been changed at all, and then we'll be able to register that agreement on title with this bylaw authorizing a change to the legal description.
Thanks, Jen. Any discussion on the motion before us? Seeing none, Brittany, would take a vote, please.
Okay, when I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against the motion. Councillor Carol Barfoot.
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland.
For.
Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn.
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson.
For.
Councillor Graham Pringle.
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton.
For.
And Mayor Dwight Burley.
For.
Thank you, and that carries.
Thank you. Our next bylaw is 2020-40. The bylaw 2020-40 being a bylaw to appoint a deputy clerk, building inspector, building official, and inspector be read a first, second, third time, finally passed and signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation and endorsed in the bylaw book. Do I someone to move the motion? Put it on the floor, please.
Grant.
Moved by Councillor Pringle, second by
Councillor Sutherland.
Councillor Sutherland. Any discussion on the motion before us?
Did you mean to say deputy chief building official? Not deputy clerk building official.
Oh, I'm sorry, Carol. I must have said deputy clerk or deputy chief.
Yeah, I knew you were going where you were going with that. I just for the record.
Thanks for the correction. If there's no other discussion on the motion, Brittany, would you take the vote, please?
When I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against the motion. Councillor Carol Barfoot.
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland.
For.
Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn.
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson.
For.
Councillor Graham Pringle.
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton.
4.
And Mayor Dwight Burley.
4.
Thank you, and that carries.
Thank you. We're down to unfinished business. I'll read the recommendation first. Whereas emergency was declared in the Township of Georgian Bluffs on March 27, 2020, in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, whereas Council adopted Bylaw 2020-35 to amend Township proceeding Bylaw 2019-125 to permit electronic participation in council meetings throughout an emergency period, further to the Municipal Emergency Act 2020, and whereas Council has deemed it appropriate to modify the regular council meeting schedule as approved by motion on their meeting on December 18, 2019 to host 2 council meetings a month on the first and third Wednesdays commencing at 4 p.m. during the remainder of the emergency period, and whereas the Township of Georgian Bluffs Procedural Bylaw 2019-125 requires amendments to that regular council meeting schedule be approved by motion of council. Now therefore, Council of the Township of Georgian Bluffs hereby amends the regular council meeting schedule to approve 2 meetings per month on the first and third Wednesdays commencing at 4 p.m. to be held electronically, and that said schedule remain in effect for the remaining of the emergency period unless otherwise specified by council. Do I have someone to move the motion put on the floor, please?
Kathy Moore Coburn.
Moved by Councillor Colburn, second by?
Grant.
Second by Councillor Pringle. Discussion on the motion before us. Anne-Marie, would you like to comment on this motion first?
I know that we had some discussion with councillors to check out schedules, and I did speak with staff looking at some of the reduction in reports that would be coming forward from planning and from some other committees that are not meeting at this time. We felt that 2 meetings a month would be sufficient, and if that changed, we would certainly be the first to notify council.
And the mayor can call a special meeting anytime we see fit?
Correct.
Is that correct? Is there any discussion on the motion? Is there any discussion on the motion before us?
Carol Barfoot.
Kathy?
Go ahead, Councillor Barfoot.
Okay, 4 o'clock is better than early afternoon. There's no doubt about it. My concern is that we have 3 councillors that have full-time jobs. Are they going to be able to, is 4 o'clock doable for them, or should we be saying 6 or 7? I just have a concern. We have some meetings coming up that I know it's imperative that they be there. So that's my concern.
Mr. Mayor, I can jump in here.
Oh, go ahead, Brittany.
Councillor Barfoot, I just want to note for council's information, following last week's meeting, I did follow up with Councillor Paul Sutherland, Councillor Ryan Thompson, and Councillor Grant Pringle regarding the 4 p.m. start times, and they were all in agreement to that start time. So Councillor Sutherland, Thompson, and Pringle, if you have a differing opinion, please do let me know.
Thanks, Brittany. Councillor Colburn, you had a comment.
No, I'm good.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt Grant if he was responding to Brittany.
No, I just want to thank everybody for giving us the opportunity to be at 4 o'clock. It's only skipping out of work an hour early for me, so it's greatly appreciated on my behalf, and 4 o'clock is fine with me.
Okay, Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, I would reiterate the same. I appreciate I know that it's not ideal for the rest of you, but I appreciate it. And 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock, It doesn't really matter to me which one it is. 4 o'clock's probably better. I just add it on to the end of the day, and I just end one thought process and start the next one. So I'm happy with 4 again, and I appreciate the consideration.
Thanks, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Sutherland, any comment?
Yeah, thanks. I do appreciate the concern on everyone's behalf, and 4 o'clock is better than 1 o'clock for myself as well. So I will make it work and try to be here as best I can. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Sutherland. Councillor Coburn, you had a comment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wondered if there has been any discussion at the emergency committee regarding resuming our council schedules as before. I know some municipalities have moved back to their regular meetings and committee meetings, and I'm just wondering if that discussion has taken place.
So Anne-Marie, before I turn it over to you, is that we did have a brief discussion on this, and the workload that's coming into the municipal office staff felt that the 2 meetings would suffice. But any time we see, for instance, a prime example is Monday when we called a special meeting, we can do that anytime we see fit if necessary. Anne-Marie, go ahead.
I was just going to, at this point, some areas have gone back to majority of their regular meetings. In conversation with Meaford, for instance, they are not wanting to start the inner fire department meetings. And a lot of the other meetings that we do have require public. So not a lot of them, but I'm just thinking committee of adjustment. So there's some meetings, some that are still not there. We're feeling that we can still provide and continue with business as usual for the township with the 2 meetings at this time. We're still early days, quite honestly. It's only been a month that we've changed that, and we're quite amendable to coming forward to council and saying, we do need 3 meetings a month. At this point, we had 5 reports come to this meeting, and at this point, we're expecting 5 more reports to the next meeting. So that's about where we're at right now.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. Is there any other discussion on the motion before us? Seeing none, Brittany, will you take the vote, please?
Yes, I can certainly do that. Councillor Coburn, I saw that you unmuted yourself. Were you wanting to make an additional comment?
No, actually, I was wanting to add another possible item under unfinished business, but then I realized we haven't dealt with the one previous, so I'll just mute myself and be quiet.
Okay, I will come back to you once we take the vote. So when I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against the motion. Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn.
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland.
For.
Councillor Carol Bartlett.
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson.
For.
Councillor Graham Pringle.
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton.
For.
And Mayor Dwight Burley.
For.
Thank you, and that carries. And Mayor Burley, Kathy Moore-Coburn has something she would like to add.
This is a new unfinished business, Kathy?
Yes, if I can.
Go ahead.
So I'm sorry, I should have mentioned this at the beginning of the meeting. I was expecting an update from Anne-Marie regarding where we're at with the ATV use on the trails in the Gleason Lake area. I know that we were expecting correspondence from Mr. McDonald with the Niagara Escarpment Commission last week. So as we had this spring in mind as a goal and a deadline to deal with that bylaw, I just wondered if we could get an update on where we're at with that, if we could.
Go ahead, Anne-Marie.
Certainly. I am still waiting that correspondence from Mr. McDonald. I have followed up by email with him for a new date. We did not receive what we needed last week. I really do feel that I need this correspondence in order to bring a report forward to deal with the ATV situation. There are 3 parts to it. I am needing the correspondence from the Niagara Escarpment Commission in order to proceed. So I have followed up, and I will continue to follow up with Mr. McDonald.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. Does that answer your question, Councillor Coburn?
In part, thank you. I did have a question regarding why, I guess I'm wondering why we need that correspondence from the NEC. Is this something that our planner can look into in terms of the mapping with the protected areas of the Niagara Escarpment Plan and bring a recommendation back based on the information that we have? Just curious as to why we feel we need direction from the Niagara Escarpment Commission on one of our bylaws, which he has stated in the past is not compliant with the intent of the Niagara Escarpment Plan.
Anne-Marie?
So from my understanding from talking with Mr. McDonald, there are certain areas that the NEC has identified that are problem areas. And the NEC has various, I guess, levels or categories that they have for areas on our trail. And I would like clarification from him so that I'm bringing something to council that is going to be correct the right time, the first time, and is going to eliminate all of the concerns that we have. I think for myself too, just coming into this position, I definitely need the clarification and the background information from the NEC that I have not been privy to in the past. You know, quite honestly, if we do get that information, then we should be able to get a report fairly soon. I'm not sure if Jen, you would have any other further comment.
Go ahead, Jen, if you have any.
I would just add that when we are looking at land uses in the Niagara Escarpment, as Anne-Marie said, there are different designations within the escarpment, and those designations will state what the permitted uses are. So having the compliance officer identify the specific locations where the non-compliance is occurring and the extent, the type of non-compliance, that helps us better address the issue and work to find solutions for it. So, and then that way we'd be able to bring back, as Anne-Marie said, a report to clearly identify what those issues are.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Jen and Anne-Marie. It makes perfect sense to get all the information we can, and that report hopefully will come back probably at our next council meeting if we get the information.
That would be the intention.
Okay. If that is all the unfinished business we have, I'll move forward with the agenda. We're down to new business. A verbal update on the interim CAO regarding township COVID-19 actions. Anne-Marie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So thankfully, there hasn't been a whole lot of orders or changes coming down from the province or our local public health. One of the one things that we did mention earlier was fishing, and the fact that we did discuss what that would mean for Georgian Bluffs at our emergency management meeting this morning, actually, and we'll continue to continue to promote social distancing or physical distancing during that. But I thought it might be just to have a recap of what is happening. We do still have the restricted fire zone for the Keppel Township and a portion of Derby Township, which is under a fire ban that is on our website. We are still not issuing any new building permits as per non-essential businesses set by the province, although we are continuing to accept applications for review and processing until the ban is lifted. Tax installments that were due April 24th have been deferred to May 24th at this time. We are not charging penalty and interest on outstanding tax and water accounts up until June 1st. Only 2 out of 4 household weekly garbage bags require a tag. So that is two bags that can go out without a tag. And of course, we are continuing with our electronic meetings. We continue to put information out to the public. We update our website through social media, and we do have an print ad going in the paper in Wyerton and Owen Sound this weekend. So we do continue to get quite a few calls and emails from residents, and we are passing that information on and other information about COVID-19 as best we can.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. Does council have any questions? Seeing none, I'll move on to the agenda then. We have no closed session. Now we have a confirming bylaw. The bylaw number 2020-41 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council on April 22nd, 2020 be read a first, second, third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed to seal of the corporation endorsing the bylaw book. Do I have someone to move the motion, please?
Also moved.
Councillor Barfoot, second by Councillor Thompson. Is there any discussion on the motion? Brittany, will you take the vote, please? Did we lose Brittany?
Oh, my apologies. I forgot to unmute myself. When I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against the motion. Councillor Carol Barfoot.
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland.
For.
Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn.
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson.
For.
Councillor Grant Pringle.
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton.
For.
And Mayor Dwight Burley.
For.
Thank you, and that carries.
Thanks, everybody. Our next meeting is May the 6th. Hope everybody stays healthy, and we'll just carry on and hopefully get out of this pandemic so we can move on with our lives. So I need a motion to adjourn. Brittany?
Yes, please.
I will move we adjourn.
It was moved by Councillor Thompson. I seen him move, and I think it was Deputy Mayor Carlton. The second.
That's correct. That's correct.
If there's no
So
discussion, discussion on the motion, go ahead, Brittany.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm rushing you. When I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against adjournment at 5:13 p.m. Councillor Carol Barfoot.
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland.
Pretty sure I beat Ryan, but for.
Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn.
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson.
You can just check the minutes at the end, Paul, and see who won. I'm for.
Councillor Grant Pringle.
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton.
For.
And Mayor Dwight Burley.
Certainly nice to see everybody's in good humor. I'm for it.
Thank you, and that carries.
Thanks, everybody. We're now adjourned.
See you in a couple weeks.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thanks, staff.
Bye, everyone.